Hello everyone and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna Nozawa sat alone in the dim light of the Forrester Mansion's vast library, where shadows danced like forgotten memories across leather-bound books and crystal decanters. Her heart was a fragmented mosaic of sorrow and desperation. The aroma of ancient paper and polished oak filled the air, but it did little to hide the bitterness of her dissolving life. She had come here not as a guest, but as a ghost of her former self, fleeing the turmoil she had caused among the Forrester family, the same people who had previously welcomed her with open arms. Steffy Forrester's 5 words, delivered in a moment of piercing clarity, demolished her perfectly prepared escape plan. "I know exactly what you did." Those words echoed in Luna's head like a relentless lament, each syllable a nail in the coffin of her delusions. She had meticulously planned everything, the fake documents, the scheduled alibis, and the whispered lies that ran through the lives of Ridge, Brooke, Hope and Finn like invisible threads. Luna had arrived in Los Angeles as a bright-eyed intern at Forrester Creations, her mother Lee's shadow looming enormous but far away. But ambition, that terrible seductress, had twisted her fate. She sought belonging, the glittering world of high fashion, and the ancestral history that the Forresters represented. And in her hunger, she had poisoned everything. It began innocently enough, or so she convinced herself in the peaceful hours before morning. A stolen kiss with Steffy's husband, Finn, during a vulnerable moment during the company party. The champagne flowed like forbidden rivers, and Luna's touch was electrifying, drawing him into a web of love that neither could escape. But it wasn't only the affair. It was the child that resulted. A covert pregnancy concealed beneath loose blouses and bogus illnesses. Luna had planned the perfect storm by drugging Steffy's drink that fateful night at the beach home, causing her competitor to black out while she, Luna, slid into Finn's bed. She later tampered with the DNA test, which confirmed her lie and declared the baby hers alone. Poppy, her cunning mother, had been her partner, delivering the medicines and forged test findings with a mother's twisted love. Now with the baby little Hayes, her stolen joy, cradled in a disguised nanny's arms miles away in a nondescript Malibu home, Luna's exit was supposed to be seamless. She had liquidated her little savings, purchased a one-way ticket to Vancouver under the identity Elena Vasquez, and packed a single duffel bag with necessities, a forged passport, cash, and a locket containing a curl of Hayes' soft hair. The goal was to leave at daybreak, board a private charter from a secret airfield, and begin again in the misty forests of British Columbia. There, she would raise her kid away from the Forrester Empire's vindictive reach, leading a tranquil life of anonymity. There are no more spotlights or scandals, just a mother and kid recovering in the rain-soaked embrace of the unknown. But Steffy saw through it. As Luna simulated a casual goodbye that afternoon in the design studio, Steffy's eyes narrowed like a predator's. The clash was immediate and nasty. "You're not leaving with my husband's child," Steffy snarled, her voice sharp. And then those 5 words. "I know exactly what you did." The room had spun for Luna. The altered evidence, the hidden cameras Poppy claimed she'd turned off, the lipstick stain on Finn's collar that Steffy had pieced together like a master puzzle. The cops were on their way, and Ridge had already called his lawyers. Luna's escape window slammed closed. Luna wept silently on the library armchair, salty tears running down her cheeks. The mansion, which had previously symbolized her conquest, now felt like a mausoleum. She recalled her own tumultuous upbringing, abandoned by her father and reared by Poppy in a blur of cheap hotels and fleeting lovers. "You'll never be enough," Poppy would snarl during her benders, and those words had fueled Luna's rage. She had wanted and deserved more. But in chasing the Forrester's light, she had fallen into a trap of her own design. A slight creak from the corridor interrupted her contemplation. The door opened, and there was Hope Logan, Luna's former rival and inadvertent ally in her dying moments of insanity. Hope's eyes were red, and her silk shirt was rumpled from pacing all night. "Luna? What are you doing here?" Steffy's called everyone. Luna rose, her voice a weak whisper. "Hope, please. Just listen. I never meant for it to go this far." She unloaded everything there. The affair, the drugging, the baby swap. Hope's face crumbled, mirroring Luna's own anguish. In that shared vulnerability, a fragile link formed like to spun glass. Hope, troubled by her own losses, her failed marriage to Liam, the aching of unrequited love for Thomas, saw Luna as a reflection of her anguish. "We could run," Hope said, her words tasting like treason. "Take Hayes and go. I have a jet-fueled in Van Nuys. My father's influence can buy us time." For a brief moment, hope sparked in Luna's chest. Together they walked like shadows, creeping through the mansion's back passages and past the snoozing security guard Poppy had previously enticed. The night air was crisp, with the distant buzz of Los Angeles traffic. They arrived to Hope's car, a beautiful black SUV, and accelerated for the airstrip, Hayes bundled in the backseat, his small fists gripping Luna's finger. The city lights blurred into neon regret streaks, each one a reminder of what Luna had destroyed. Steffy's broken trust, Finn's perplexed shame, and Brooke's parental rage. But fate, that capricious thief, had different intentions. As the airfield approached, a solitary expanse of asphalt beneath a canopy of stars, a siren wailed in the distance. Steffy's remarks had activated the Forrester's machine, with helicopters banging overhead and police cruisers skidding to a stop. Ridge Forrester stepped out, his expression filled with paternal fury. "Luna, it's all over." The arrest was a whirl of handcuffs and flashing lights. Brooke, Hope's mother, took her aside and whispered assurances of leniency for her daughter's involvement. Luna was pushed into the back of a squad car, and Hayes was snatched from her arms by a social worker's uninterested hands. "Mommy!" the infant cried, his words piercing Luna's heart like shards of glass. She put her face to the window as the car drove away, watching the airstrip recede and Vancouver's promise fade into the darkness. Luna's world shrank to a 10 by 10 cell in the frigid confines of the county jail, with gray walls, a flimsy cot, and the constant drip of a leaking faucet. Days turned into weeks, her trial a spectacle splashed across tabloids. Forrester heiress imposter faces justice. Poppy paid a visit once, her face wan and her eyes hollow. "You were always too soft," she spat, but her shaking palms revealed her sadness. Luna's aunt, Lee, also arrived, offering legal assistance with chilly detachment. "Blood is blood," Lee explained, but her voice trembled. Luna dreamed about Hayes when she was alone at night, his first steps on Canadian soil, his laughter ringing through pine-scented halls. She composed letters she couldn't send, apologizing to Steffy. "I envied your strength, your family. Forgive me." To Finn, "Our night was real, even if built on lies." To Hope, "You gave me a sister's love in my darkest hour." But forgiveness was a luxury denied. The verdict was swift. 20 years for fraud, violence, and child endangerment. As the gavel fell, Luna fainted, her cries booming across the courtroom. Steffy stared from the gallery, her face a mask of stoic success, but tears welled in her eyes. Luna recognized it then, the underlying humanity beneath the hatred. Steffy won, but at what cost? A shattered family with a child caught in the crossfire. Years passed in the antiseptic routine of prison life. Luna's once vibrant hair had turned gray, and her hands were callous from doing laundry. Hayes grew up without her, and images smuggled by a sympathetic guard depicted a youngster with Finn's eyes and Steffy's fire. Hope came infrequently, her own life a flurry of Logans and Forresters, but always with a warmth that penetrated the bars. "He's happy," Hope would add, pushing images upon the glass. "He asks about you." After 15 years, parole was granted one autumn day. The California sun blinded Luna as she stepped out of the fluorescent shadow of decades. She was 42 now, a shadow of the determined teenager that had stormed Forrester Creations. No ceremony, no family reunion, just a bus ticket to a halfway home in Santa Barbara. There she found work as a seamstress, her talented fingers mending fabrics while she sewed together the tatters of her spirit. Hayes visited her on her 45th birthday. Steffy, in an act of extraordinary generosity, drove him herself. The boy, now a young man of 15, stood awkwardly and tall, his stare reflecting Luna's own uneasiness. "Mom?" he asked, the word a bomb and a blade. They spent hours talking on a decrepit porch, Luna revealing her sins like faded photographs. Hayes listened, his quiet laden with the weight of lost years. "I forgive you," he eventually muttered, squeezing her tightly. Steffy stared from the automobile, her 5 words fading into reconciliation's peaceful dawn. However, Luna's anguish persisted in the peaceful evenings that followed, forming a unique tapestry of loss and redemption. She wandered the beaches alone, the sound of the water drowning out her regrets. There were few friends, a nice neighbor and a book club of fellow parolees, but love blossomed unexpectedly with Marcus, a gentle widower who saw past her scars. Their wedding was simple, under a canopy of stars with Hayes as best man. But like her story's melancholy core, joy was transient. Luna was diagnosed with cancer in her 50th year, and it came as a stealthy attack from within. Hayes nursed her through chemotherapy, keeping his hands calm as hers quiver. When Steffy paid them a visit, their old rivalry turned into a sisterhood. "Those 5 words saved us all," Steffy said one evening while holding Luna's hand. "But they broke you." Luna died at dawn, watching the sun rise over the Pacific with Hayes by her side. Her final words, "I was loved in the end." Her ashes were strewn in Vancouver's forests, fulfilling the never-to-be escape. The foresters mourned her in a unique way, not as a villain, but as a girl who dared too much, loved too deeply, and paid the ultimate price. Luna Nozawa's story became a whispered legend in Los Angeles. The intern who toppled titans, the mother who lost everything, and the lady whose anguish was as big and unbreakable as the sea. And in the Forrester Mansion's library, a solitary book remained untouched, a record of her unsent letters, its pages yellowed, its sentences a perpetual elegy to a life not lived. Luna had always believed that the shadows were more honest than the daylight. Growing up, the world taught her that love was conditional, approval was fleeting, and she needed to conceal aspects of herself in order to live. In the silence of her heart, she plotted her escape. A chance to be free of the guilt, shame, and relentless expectation of being someone she was not. She imagined one day walking out of the door that had kept her trapped in more ways than one, breathing air that smelt like possibilities. She had mentally sketched out the route, the shadowy hallway, the side exit she had discovered by accident, and the moment the lock clicked open and she stepped into her preferred nightscape. She told herself she wasn't running away from people, but rather towards something. A version of herself who could laugh without trembling, hope without looking over her shoulder, and sleep without nightmares. She mentally rehearsed her liberation until the walls around her melted, and the concept of escape became more real than the bars. In her quiet moments, she set her ideas on a mental altar. She'd leave behind the ceaseless murmurs about what she'd done, what she'd stolen, and who she'd injured. She would turn away from the faces of those who saw her as broken, damaged, and hopeless. She carried your past faults as weights, and she would shed them. She would stroll through the side door into the soft night, allowing the breeze to wash away the echoes. Then came the moment when she mustered the guts. Her heart beat as she pressed her palm to the doorknob. She experienced liberation in one breath, tingling hope and a quiet of relief. The lock broke, the door groaned open, and Luna felt as if the night were an ocean, and she was the tide finally flowing ahead. But before she could put one foot down, the echo of 5 words destroyed the moment. Steffi's piercing, hard voice echoed behind her. "You don't get to run." Time passed. Luna's hand froze at the door. The wind stopped. The door sighed open, but she remained fixed at the threshold. The 5 words encircled her throat, suffocating the dream she'd grasped so closely. The escape plot failed before it even began. Her heart felt hollow and achy. She knew that the struggle was not only against the barred door or the prison of walls, but also against belief. Against the notion that she deserved to go, breathe, and rewrite her tale. With just 5 words, someone declared that she had no right to even try. Luna felt the world tilt at that very instant. The darkness, which had before served as a haven, now squeezed in like a cage. The hope she had constructed shattered and spilled out into the corridor. She turned back, heavy with the realization that freedom could as easily be a falsehood. And the walk away that she had practiced so many times? It remained because the door shut behind her without a struggle. She returned to the chamber from which she had planned her escape, the walls looming. The memories of what came before, the blunders, the betrayals, the nights she wept herself to sleep, flooded in, and Steffi's voice screamed in her brain once more. "You don't get to go." She enveloped herself in remorse, certain that someone else's decision could define her worth. Days have gone. Luna tried to breathe again, but each one tasted like what she had lost. The world outside beckoned, but she felt walled out. The sky appeared the same, the stars gleaming in the same way, but she felt disconnected, as if she was watching from behind a window she could never open. She went to the door again. She touched the doorknob and imagined the click, then stepped out. But the weight on her chest kept her back. The 5 words wouldn't let her go. They hung like a chain around her ankles, dragging her backward. She recognized that escape meant more than just leaving a location. It was also about overcoming the conviction that you do not deserve to leave. Sometimes she mumbled the words in the dark, attempting to reduce them and render them powerless. But every time she heard the echo, her hopes faded. She wondered whether freedom wasn't meant for those like her. Perhaps I belong behind these walls of guilt and memory. One rainy evening she sat at the window, watching the world outside go on without her. The rain formed sluggish rivulets down the glass like tears. She wondered what her life would have been like if she had been told, "You are free to walk." And then she sobbed for the door she couldn't open, the plan she couldn't carry out, and the self she couldn't rescue. In the solitude, she knew that the harshest jail was not made of steel or iron, but of words. Words that declared you unworthy, unlovable, and incapable. Words that sapped the motivation to try. Words transformed an optimistic heart into a quiet shell. Luna's escape was thwarted not because the door was locked, but because her imagination carried the latch. Steffi's 5 words became a barrier that she couldn't overcome. So she remained in the room of her past, gazing out the window and mourning the version of herself she never became. And in the cold silence of the night, with the rain still tapping against the glass, Luna closed her eyes and mumbled an apology to the version of herself who dared to dream, as well as the freedom she would now only remember. However, the story did not conclude the night Luna gave up. The world kept turning, unconcerned about her sadness, and the days blended together like paintings left out in the rain. She began to go about her routines as if she were someone else, quieter, smaller. Her laughing faded first. Then her music, followed by her words. She lived in the spaces between moments, when memories didn't fully reach her but pain did. Every night, she would go to the same window and trace the outline of the moon. It reminded her of how close she had come to changing everything. She occasionally muttered to the moon, as if it could hear her confession, "I almost made it out." The moon never responded, but its silent brilliance seemed to reassure her that almost was not the same as never. Weeks later, Steffi discovered Luna sitting there, silent and pallid. She paused briefly. She had not intended for her words to become chains. She had merely wanted Luna to confront her faults and stop escaping from them. But when she saw the emptiness in Luna's eyes, something inside her shattered. She recognized that sometimes control masquerades as love, and sometimes love destroys what it seeks to defend. When Steffi left the room that night, Luna repeated the 5 words to herself, but this time in a different tone. Not a command but a question. "You don't get to run?" Perhaps she did. Perhaps escaping was not cowardice but survival. She didn't open the door that night, but she did glance at it and smiled for the first time in a long while. A faint spark rekindled deep within her, the delicate beginning of hope.